So this week we're starting a new topic of using the Earth's resources, and to start this off we're going to be taking a look at finite and renewable resources. We're going to finish this lesson by considering what the advantages and disadvantages are of the methods used to tackle the problem of finite resources. So to start with, thinking about the different resources that we use, so we use different Earth's resources to provide warmth, shelter, food and transport. What examples of materials can you think of that are used for this? I've got 4 images on the slide to give you prompts for these. So with looking at warmth, shelter, food and transport, but what materials have we sourced from the Earth in order to do these things? 3 images here, one of crude oil, one of metal ores and one of limestone. What do these images have in common? So these are all finite resources. So these are resources that are being used up faster than they can be replaced. So there's a limited amount of them, and that means that eventually one day we're going to run out of those resources if we're using them faster than we can replace them. Renewable resources are resources which can be replaced at the same rate at which we are using them. Here's an example of 3 renewable resources. So we've got some bamboo in the top left, we've got some wood in the top right, and then we've got some crops, which is for our food. And so all of these, we're able to replace them at the rate that we are using them currently. Graph on the left is showing if our production rate remains at the current level, what we're going to end up with in 2036. So some key things here: gold being depleted in 2027, silver in 2034, lead in 2031, and also tin in 2031, and lots of other resources which have quite a limited time span looking forward from 2036. So this was taken in 2011, so if the production rate remained at the current level of 2011, and then this graph is showing that if our production continues to accelerate at the current rates, what we're going to look like in 2036. And here a lot more metals and resources will have been depleted by then. So I want to consider now the different methods in which we extract our metals. Some of these will be familiar to us from our chemical changes topic, where we looked at the reactivity series of metals and the different ways in which we could extract metals. So we've looked at mining, which is used to extract metals such as silver and gold and platinum, because they're very unreactive, so they tend to just exist by themselves and not in metal ores. We looked at using reduction with carbon for any metals that are less reactive than carbon. And then finally we looked at electrolysis for any metals that were more reactive than carbon. We did talk about how electrolysis requires a lot of energy, because in order to extract the metals using electrolysis, they need to be in their molten state, and that requires a lot of energy in order to get them into that molten state. 2 new methods to have a look at is bioleaching and phytomining. I'm going to briefly talk about it in this video, however I've also included a link to a video which gives a better understanding of these concepts, as they're able to animate the different stages for you. So phytomining, as you can see, we've got a picture of a plant and its roots and the soil on the right hand side. So those orange blobs are copper ions, which are in our soil, and these can be taken in by the roots, so they're absorbed by the roots as the roots take in water and minerals. And so then this plant then has a source of copper in the plant. So what we can then do is burn the plant, and from the ash there will be copper compounds in that plant. And we can then obtain the copper through electrolysis or using ion displacement reactions in order to obtain pure copper rather than the copper compound. Bioleaching is where we have bacteria absorbing copper compounds, and they then produce solutions called leachates which contain the copper compounds. It's quite a slow process, but it doesn't require as much energy as some of the other methods that we've looked at. So considering what sustainable means, so this is where we are able to meet the needs of our current generation but without compromising the ability of our future generations to meet their own needs. So being able to continue doing the things that we need to be able to do, but also ensuring that 10 years down the line we're still able to do those things. So if we're using up our finite resources, we need to be considering what will our future generations use. So we need to find ways of reducing our use of finite resources, but also looking at synthetic products that we can use instead of these natural or finite resources. So I've got a table for you to fill in. So I've given you all the synthetic products that we can use to supplement or replace it. I'd like you to consider what the natural product is for clothes, tyres and washers, and used in construction. So if you pause the video and then I will go through the answers in a moment. So for clothes, we've got a few different clothes uses on there. So we've already looked at cotton and wool. However, nylon is a synthetic replacement for silk. And then our tyres, we use rubber as the natural product for those. And in construction, we are using wood. So make sure that you've got those completed in your table. So reducing our resources, so these materials are all limited raw materials. Plastics might be the unfamiliar one to you, however remember that they come from crude oil. But metal, building materials, glass, clay materials and plastics, they're all limited by the raw materials that they're used, but also the energy used to extract and process them will also come from limited resources such as our fossil fuels. Just a reminder that our fossil fuels, that's our coal, our crude oil and our natural gas. We can also look at reusing resources, so glass bottles, we can reuse those, and car parts as well. When you go to scrap your car, they can take certain parts before scrapping the car so that they can be reused in other cars. Recycling, so this is where we take our components and we make something new out of them. So we can do that with glass, paper, cardboard, plastic, certain types of plastic, clothes and shoes, electrical items including old phones. So when we looked at extracting methods, some of those can damage the environment, so through pollution, but also mining is also damaging to the environment. We know that our stocks of them are running low, and so we're looking to reduce our limited resources, reduce our use of energy, and reduce the waste and environmental impacts of these extraction methods. So I'd like you to copy and complete by filling in the gaps. So we've got 3 R's that we've just looked at. but which one is which. So looking at reducing, reusing and recycling. Pause the video and then I will go through the answers. So which are the amount that we use by replacing with man-made materials. So we can reduce the amount we use by replacing with man-made materials, which are materials for similar things. Well, we can reuse materials for similar things. For example, our glass bottles we can reuse to contain liquids. And then which are old or damaged items being converted into different ones with different uses. So is recycling. So you now have some videos to look at on plastic bottles and recycling of metals, and then there are 2 activities, copy and complete on recycling metals, and then a exam question on recycling to be submitted in teams. There's also a dirt video this week to watch, and then an activity to choose based on that.